Very warm welcome to the 2022 Cathay Pacific HSBC Hong Kong Sevens media launch. Mong Gok Wai Phu Nying. My name is Robbie McRobbie. I'm the CEO of the Hong Kong Rugby Union, and I will be your program host today. We will be kicking off the event in true Sevens style later on, but first we wanted to brief the media on the latest progress of the event. I'll briefly walk through an informational presentation for about 15 to 20 minutes before inviting questions from the media. So now, if I could ask you to turn your attention to the screens on either side of me, we will begin. So, I'm going to share all the latest information about bubbles, fan experience, and tickets. Then we'll move on to the Q&A, and after that, we'll reveal the tournament draw and even talk a little bit about rugby. With a Sevens tournament in November and another in April, today sees the kickoff to 7 months of Sevens. We all know that the Sevens is great fun, but there is a serious side to it as well. The event produces 95% of the Hong Kong Rugby Union's revenue, which in turn supports all the work that we do in the community. Even more importantly, the Sevens injects over 500 million Hong Kong dollars annually into our city's economy, and the absence of the event has impacted the livelihood of many of our contractors and suppliers, as well, of course, as our friends in the hospitality industry. It has also been devastating for our own organisation, with over 250 million Hong Kong dollars of accumulated losses to date, which has led to the sad redundancies of over 50% of our staff. For the sake of the union, the sports sector, the event industry, and our city, we simply cannot afford any further delays to the return of the magnificent Sevens. As you're aware, we have received approval from the government to proceed with the Cathay Pacific HSBC Hong Kong Sevens from the 4th to the 6th of November 2022. We remain in daily communication with the relevant government departments, World Rugby, medical experts, and all the teams, ensuring that the event will be delivered in compliance with the prevailing COVID measures that are in place at that time. Given our incurred losses, safeguarding the viability of the Hong Kong Rugby Union and the Hong Kong Sevens is of paramount concern to us. While there are still some uncertainties, we do expect the steady relaxation of global and local travel restrictions to continue apace. And obviously, we look forward to announcements later this afternoon. And with the support we've received from government, World Rugby and the teams, and the approval of our comprehensive health and safety plan, we are confident we can stage the tournament without further risk to the financial health of the Hong Kong Rugby Union. The theme for November is our Sevens. It is a unique theme for a unique year. It reflects the importance of the event for our rugby community and our city. It also serves as a reminder of our 45 years of history and our proud status as the premier Sevens event in the world, a truly made in Hong Kong spectacular. It also shares our rugby community's desire to renew and rekindle friendships formed over decades in the So Composed Stadium, whilst acknowledging the likelihood that the majority of spectators will be Hong Kong residents in November, a deviation from the traditional 50-50 local and overseas split. This emphasis on Hong Kong elements will be carried through to the event itself as we express our support for other pandemic-affected industries. As one example, we will shine a light on local musicians and entertainers in the stadium in November. Saturday is already shaping up to be a big day, with exciting local DJ Ben Cullen opening with a special South Stand set, and fan favourites, the Red Stripes, are confirmed as one of the live music acts, with more names to be announced in the coming weeks. We will also again host thousands of local school children, along with local charities and NGO groups, free of charge on the Friday evening as part of our community engagement efforts. I'm delighted to confirm that whilst the cost of everything else in life continues to rise, our Sevens ticket prices will remain frozen at 2019 levels. That means Hong Kong dollars 1,950 for 3-day adult tickets, $950 for 3-day children's tickets aged 12 years and under. We accept demand will be impacted in November, but we are confident of a strong attendance for our big comeback and the usual Hong Kong enthusiastic welcome for all teams inside the stadium, well apart from the Australians, of course. I'm delighted to be able to tell you that we've already had a very positive response from our rugby community and stakeholders who've been given a priority booking period prior to the public sale. We have sold over 16,500 tickets to date, which represents almost 50% of our currently permitted stadium capacity and a very respectable 70% of our 2019 sales like for like. So mark your diaries, the public ticket sale opens on the 28th of September. In previous years, we made 9,000 tickets available through a public ticket ballot. This time, an initial 10,000 3-day tickets will go on sale from the 28th of September for subscribers to the Hong Kong Sevens newsletter, with the general public on sale date being 24 hours later on the 29th of September. No ballot this time. Will be selling on a first come, first served basis. Given the encouraging talk of possible loosening of quarantine restrictions, we'll also be keeping a few tickets in reserve to accommodate any late developing international or world rugby requests, or indeed my close family members. For those who have lamented in the past the difficulty of obtaining a ticket and experiencing that Sevens magic, this is your chance. Come and be a part of our Sevens. So, we're in an encouraging place, and we are hugely thankful to our awesome rugby community and all our stakeholders for showing their commitment and love for the Sevens. We are especially grateful for the continued and patient support of our co-title sponsors, Cathay Pacific and HSBC, and indeed all corporate suite holders and box patrons who are returning for the event. We look forward to showing our gratitude in the very best way possible by putting on a great show. We are all excitedly scanning the newspapers every morning, hoping for continued good news on COVID numbers and further relaxation in local restrictions over the coming weeks and even this afternoon. And fingers crossed, we seem to be heading in the right direction. However, like all good sports teams, we focus on playing what's currently in front of us. So the initiatives on the following pages are in compliance with prevailing conditions as of today. Any changes between now and November, and we will of course adjust our plans accordingly. So, what can our fans expect? Well, it will certainly be a very unique tournament, not least for being the only one we've ever hosted in the autumn. But much of what will be in place will in fact be very familiar to all of us Hong Kongers. We will need to use the Leave Home Safe app and present the vaccine pass on entry, just the same as you did today to enter Hong Kong Exchange. We'll be sitting in groups of 8 or less, not an issue if, like me, you don't have 7 friends. And we'll be wearing our face masks when not consuming. We genuinely do not believe that these are significant barriers to enjoying a day out at the Sevens. What we can look forward to includes cheering for your favourite team from amongst the 15 best sides from 6 continents, and of course, our own Hong Kong hometown heroes over 3 days of fun and sun. And let's not forget that November is traditionally our best weather of the year. Also, the chance to go box hopping and see your Sevens friends again, meeting rugby legends, including the man who helped put Hong Kong on the map, the king of sevens, Waisali Sarevi, who was the very first to put up his hand to come and join us in November. Also a rare opportunity to support and enjoy live music and entertainment. And for the fancy dress fanatics amongst you, let's see if that costume you designed 3 years ago still fits. We are excited, but we're also conscious of our responsibilities. World Rugby has agreed to our request that all participating players and officials appearing in November have had at least 2 vaccinations. World Rugby and Centre for Health Protection have agreed on protocols in the event of a positive COVID case in the closed-loop bubble. Given the extensive precautionary measures in place, we are therefore confident to proceed under these circumstances. We've spoken about it a lot, but what exactly is the closed-loop bubble all about? Well, the first thing to stress is that it is in reality only a very small group who will be in the bubble. The teams and officials and a limited number of Hong Kong Rugby Union support staff. Other staff, bands, stadium workers, and all of the spectators will not be in any bubble. For those in the bubble arriving from overseas, they will proceed straight from the airport to the Kerry Hotel, which we have exclusively booked for the duration of the tournament. Rather than the normal twin rooms, everybody will be accommodated on a single room basis. All the teams will have dedicated team transport throughout their stay in Hong Kong. And all the teams will have exclusive training venues which will be subject to regular and rigorous cleansing. Any of our local staff who end up in the bubble will complete whatever is the required quarantine procedures post-event, if any are in place at that time. Testing. There will be a bit of testing. Players and officials will undergo a PCR test 48 hours prior to their departure from country of origin. On arrival, they'll be subject to a further PCR and RAT testing. And from that point, they will have daily PCR testing at the hotel for the entire duration of their stay. We will also have daily PCR testing for hotel and event staff who are interacting with the overseas teams and officials. This sounds like a lot, but with over 30 World Rugby sanctioned sevens tournaments since the teams last came here in 2019, I can assure you that the teams are well accustomed to such requirements and are very much prepared to comply. To maintain the integrity of the event bubble, access to the pitch and working areas of the Hong Kong Stadium will also be heavily restricted. But the good news for our snapper friends in the media, we will be able to arrange a limited number of socially distanced photography positions around the pitch. Just bear in mind, you will need to wear event-suitable PPE. I'm sure you'll all look very, very dashing. Food and beverage. The question that I am asked on a regular basis, will they or won't they be eating all the pies? So, beverage service has been approved, but we are currently facing restrictions on food service in the stadium. In response, we have proposed several concepts to address concerns, including creating socially distanced food courts inside or adjacent to the stadium during the event, which we believe are feasible. But it does remain a possibility that no in-seat or concourse level food service will be available, which certainly would not be optimal from our perspective. However, we are planning for this eventuality. Our schedule minimizes food service needs with later starts on Friday and Saturday. A 3:30 p.m. kickoff on Friday gives an excellent excuse for a leisurely long lunch, whilst a hearty full breakfast or brunch on the Saturday should set you up nicely for the first game at 11 a.m. We are doing our best to mitigate this issue, but I must stress that ultimately, the Hong Kong Rugby Union is not responsible for providing outside dining options or policing food and beverage consumption outside of the stadium. While we'll make the most of it, the best of it for November, I think we would all agree that this policy is not sustainable for future Sevens or indeed any major sports events in the stadium. But for now, given the importance of health and safety and of getting the Sevens back on the calendar, we're prepared to make concessions around concessions. And that is the end, which means it's your opportunity now to ask me questions. It is the Q&A session. So we have people in the crowd on mics, so if you could stand up and introduce yourself when you ask your question, that would be great.
Hi, Robbie. It's Scott Murdoch from Reuters here. Firstly, what is the likelihood of any international tourism coming here? Like, I know there's an announcement due in 10 minutes. Is that likely to happen? And secondly, how on earth is anyone going to have any fun with these rules?
What was the second bit to the question?
How are we going to have fun?
Oh. So in terms of the international travellers, we are anticipating that there would be very minimal numbers this year in November. Any relaxation of the quarantine restrictions will obviously make it easier to facilitate that. But I think even under a 0+7, we would still anticipate that we're not going to see a lot of overseas spectators in November. As I say, we're looking at that in a positive way, in as much as it provides a greater opportunity for the Hong Kong local fans to attend. So we will inevitably, I think, see fewer overseas spectators, but as I say, an opportunity for Hong Kongers who perhaps in the past have struggled to get tickets to come along and enjoy the Sevens experience. And enjoy the experience, I think they will, to your second question. How can we have fun? Well, the elements that make the Sevens special are all going to be there. The rugby is the number one thing. We've got the 15 best Sevens teams in the world and our beloved own Hong Kong team playing. We're going to have live music. We're going to have all the normal banter in the stadium. To my mind, the fact that we're having to show a leave home safe pass and wear a mask and that, these are things that we've become accustomed to, and I see in no way as being a barrier to people coming along and having a fantastic 3 days.
Josh.
No, that was a poorly written piece by Sean. No, in fact, the beverage will be completely normal. So as you'll be able to go to the concessions and purchase a beverage, or indeed there will be the Carlsberg roaming girls, so you'll be able to sit in your seat and buy a beverage. So the beverage situation would be entirely as it is in any other year.
And in terms of the food, just following on, has there been discussions with the government regarding the sensible approach of having people drinking but not eating?
We've had discussions with the government over this issue, and we have, as I said, we have put forward ideas that we think could help with this, in particular designating food areas within the stadium. And you know, I would say that we are having a positive discourse. From our point of view, it's not the alcohol. It's just the fan experience and the welfare of the individual. Whether you're drinking or you're not drinking, you know, 8 or 9 hours in any situation without being able to eat is not a great experience. Of course, people can leave the stadium and they can go and get something to eat, but our feeling is they've paid $1,950 for a ticket to come and enjoy some of the best rugby sevens in the world. They should be able to sit in the seats and watch the action all the way through. So we're very much pushing and hoping that an in-stadium solution can be found to this.
Were you given a reason as to why food was not to be served?
No, just in terms of it's in compliance with CAP 599. Got a mic over there.
Good afternoon. Several questions from Now TV News. The first question is the government will possibly announce that they will shorten or change the quarantine measure to 0+3. Do you think it is helpful to the to the sportsmen at all? And then given that they still have to undergo closed loop management. And the second question is, are you worried about some of the foreign audience, especially the family members or the friends of the sportsmen, that they might not be able or they are not willing to come to Hong Kong, given that the relatively strict anti-epidemic measures in Hong Kong? Thank you.
So in terms of any relaxation in the quarantine that we might see this afternoon, I think the first thing to say is we would, like all of us, we would be absolutely delighted and overjoyed. And that's not purely from Hong Kong Rugby Union, Hong Kong Sevens point of view. That's just because of the positive impact it will have on the city in general. But I think more particularly, you know, selfishly from the sports sector and the event sector, all of these things are very, very important. You know, the number of international sports events we've got hopefully lined up in the coming months, whether that's snooker and tennis, and obviously we've got football here at the moment. It all involves athletes coming in from overseas. So any relaxation of the quarantine is going to be really good. Whether or not it enables us to move away from a closed loop mechanism is a different question, and it may well be that in fact it doesn't allow us to do that for November. The closed loop mechanism from our point of view is okay. The teams have accepted it. We're happy to go forward on that basis. It's expensive. One thing I'd have to say, the additional costs to the union of implementing a closed loop model are very significant. So again, we would hope that going forward, we're not going to have to do this again in April. But the overarching sentiment is, of course, 0+7, 0+3, whatever it might be, any move that is a relaxation of the quarantine is definitely a positive thing for the Hong Kong sports industry. In terms of the family and friends of players who are participating not being able to come to Hong Kong, yeah, of course that's disappointing. You know, we would love to be in a situation where all of the fantastic, loyal overseas fans who come back to Hong Kong every year were able to come back in November. If it's not the situation, then I'm sure they'll be back in April. And hopefully those friends and family that you're referring to will come and have the opportunity to see their sons and their daughters in April, because we'll also have the 12 best women's teams in the world playing in April. So hopefully they'll have the chance to come along, experience the magnificent Hong Kong Sevens and see their sons and daughters, husbands and wives in action.
Yes, hi, I'm from Ming Pao. And as you have explained, pre-COVID era, there will be $500 million revenue annually. And can you estimate figures for maybe the cost, increase of cost? What would be the revenue of this event? And also, because Rugby Association have cut 50% of the staff, would the association recruit again? Because with one eye in also the event next year in April.
What was the second bit, whether we've got enough staff? Or whether we recruit? Right. So the first bit of the question, the $500 million, sadly that wasn't just a profit for the union. That was actually our impact on the wider economy. If that was profit for the union, then I'd be retired and living in the south of France by now. But as I say, obviously the revenue for the union is massively important. At this point in time, it's difficult to predict to what extent we will make money from November. That hasn't, if I say that hasn't been the most important thing, we don't want to lose money. We can't afford to lose any more money. But as long as we wash our face, then we're happy. We just want to get the event back. We want to get it back on the calendar. We want to get our staff back, focused, delivering this event, so we make sure that when we hit April, we're going to be going, full steam and put on a huge event in April. The $500 million, the impact on the broader Hong Kong economy, again, it's not going to be that figure in November because there's not going to be the overseas visitors. So the amount of people staying in hotels, is not going to be as big. However, we are still working, for example, with the Wai Fong Association. People are still going to take the opportunity of that weekend. They're going to go out and dine. They're going to go to bars afterwards. Hopefully, they're going to have lunch and breakfast before they go to the stadium. They're going to go to Wai Fong. They're going to catch taxis. They're going to catch buses. And in terms of the impact that we have ourselves, all of the buses that we hire, all the contractors that we use in the stadium, the music, the sound, all of that stuff, the guy that does the pyrotechnics. So all of that, yes, will be impacted. It's not going to be 500 million, but will it be significant? Yes, it will. And for those individuals, for that poor guy who hasn't been able to fire off his pyrotechnics much in the last 3 years, this is really, really important for him. A lot of these businesses have been hanging on by a thread in the sports and the event sector. So again, getting stuff back and getting people back to work and getting income coming in, I think is absolutely critical. There's a bigger picture, but there's also some real human interest stories, I think, as well. Will we be recruiting staff? Yes, we're already recruiting staff. And I have to say, it's not easy because what's happened over the last 3 years, because of the impact on the events industry, the sports industry, a lot of good people have left and they're now working in other sectors. And to get them to come back is not easy. We've managed to rehire some of the staff that we made redundant. And I'm delighted we've been able to do that. But equally, a lot of those people are now doing other things. They're working in insurance or they're working in finance. So it's tough. The talent pool in Hong Kong in these areas is not massively deep. But yes, we are recruiting. So if you have any good names or recommendations, see me afterwards. I'll be very keen to hear.
Hi, this is Vivian from CNBC. First question, I just want to follow what you were just saying. So does it mean that this event that you guys are aiming to, the goal is to try to break even rather than making any losses? So, you're not really expecting a lot of international travelers coming to the event this time. So I'm just wondering if break even is your goal. My second question is, I actually overheard from the floor just now that there won't be any women's tournament this time. Can you clarify that, and why is the reason there is no women's tournament? Would it be because of the staff size have been downsized, or operation being downsized a little bit because you lack of staff or something like that? Thank you.
I'll address the women's one first because I can remember that one. You have to remind me about the first one, about break even, right? The women's one. So the April sevens will be men and women, and for the first time, it will be the full women's core series as well as the men's core series. So it'll be the top 15 men's team plus Hong Kong, and the top 11 women's team plus Hong Kong playing in April. The reason that we don't have the women playing in November is because the November tournament is an extra tournament. So it's not part of the original scheduled season, which should be 10 tournaments for the men. It's been added on because World Rugby are keen to see Hong Kong back. So it's an 11th additional tournament. Now, the way that the calendar is basically marked up, the only time that they could fit in an additional tournament was early November, because there has to be a minimum of 3.5 weeks between tournaments for player welfare point of view. The first of the normal 10 tournaments takes place in Dubai at the end of November, so it basically had to be in early November. Now, why that makes it difficult for the women is because the Women's 15s World Cup is taking place in New Zealand during that time. At the moment, amongst the international women's team, there is a very high crossover between the 7s and the 15s teams. So basically, World Rugby weren't comfortable, and it didn't really make sense to try and have a women's 7s tournament whilst the Women's 15s World Cup was still going on, because basically you wouldn't get the best players in the world, and even I think a number of the teams would have been struggling to actually participate. So that's why there's no women's tournament in November. It's nothing to do with a lack of resources or anything else. And as I say, we're very, very much looking forward to hosting the first proper core series joint event for men and women in April. So the first question, if I remember correctly, is our objective to break even? I would frame it, I guess, in a slightly different way. Our objective, first and foremost, is not to lose money. That's number one priority. I probably won't be standing here again in April if I manage to lose money on this. But at the same time, of course, we would like to generate some profit. The money that we make, not to labor the point, but you have to remember that we're not a company with shareholders or anything like that. All of the money that we make goes back into the rugby community. So whilst it's been very painful for us as an organisation over the last 3 years, it's been equally painful for the wider rugby community. So all of the support that we normally give to our clubs, to the schools, to the various NGOs and charities, everybody that we work with, we've not been able to do that. So of course, we want to make money because we want to go back to doing what we think we do very, very well, which is have a very positive impact on the wider Hong Kong community.
One more question, anybody? Last one, please.
Hello, question from Cable News. And as you mentioned, like half of the available tickets have been purchased, and most of the tickets are bought by the local people or the foreigners. I would like to know. And the quarantine period is about to be shortened, and what's your expectations on the sales of the tickets? And the second question is, because of the strict quarantine requirements in Hong Kong, like there's a few international competitions will be taking place in other countries, and what do you feel about it, and how to ensure that Hong Kong Sevens will be can be held on November? Thank you.
I guess, again, to move around the order a little bit, the first thing is, as a member of the Hong Kong sports sector, every time I read a story that we are losing an international sports event to another country, I am very, very sad. And I fear that we won't get them back onto the calendar. So when dragon boating goes, or tennis goes, or whatever like that is it's disappointing, and I think it's particularly sad because we are so close to the opening of what is going to be an amazing, fantastic new sports hub at Kai Tak. And so really, we should be gearing up. We should be attracting more international sports events over the next 2 years, ready for Kai Tak's opening. So, first of all, absolutely disappointed every time we hear that we're losing an event. One of the things that COVID has done is it's brought the sports community in Hong Kong much closer together. So we do, as the various national sports associations, we speak a lot more now. We share the pain. There's been quite a lot of that. But we also try and share best practice, experience, knowledge to try and make sure that it's not just us that is able to put on events and move forward, but also all of the sports events, the marathon, the tennis, the snooker, the dragon boating, all of it, we can get back up and running, back on the calendar. So that's absolutely critical. In terms of the ticket sales, yeah, I mean, I have to say that being where we are at the moment with 16,500 tickets sold is probably a much better place than I expected to be right now. I am quietly optimistic that when we go to public ticket sale, we will see strong demand. I think we can see the sentiment in the community, in society, is having a bit of an uplift. I think if there is positive news today about quarantine, I think Hong Kong is starting to bounce back, is starting to rebound, and hopefully I think people will feel that the opportunity to go and experience the Sevens in November and have a fantastic weekend, let the hair down, have a good time. I think that'll hopefully fit in with the Zeitgeist, is that the right word? That Zeitgeist. Anyway, the spirit of Hong Kong that we're moving forward with. So yes, even if we still are not able to sell tickets to overseas people because of remaining quarantine, I am optimistic that the local market, the local demand is going to get us to a good place, and we're going to see a full stadium. Possibly don't quote me on that. We're going to see a very, very busy stadium on the 4th to 6th of November. Okay. Thank you all for your interest, and I hope that we have at least addressed some of the issues that have surrounded the build-up to the event. I also very much hope that you will share our excitement at the return of the event and be supportive and understanding of our efforts to safeguard the health of our fans, our athletes, and the union itself.